Continue with this coverage of the deployment of members of the South African National Defence Force in parts of Johannesburg. Let's speak now to the Gauteng Community Safety Portfolio Committee chairperson, Dr. Bandile Masuku. He's in studio with me tonight. Good to have you here. Some would have expected you to be out in the field with the soldiers, but we're happy that you are here. Let's talk first about how confident you are that these SANDF members are trained in terms of handling civilians, because the last time they were on the ground, it wasn't a pretty picture.
It wasn't a pretty picture, and I think that's what, in the memory of our citizens, it will always come up. You know, I think what happened in Alexander still sticks out as a very sore moment. But I think the actual feeling of safety that the residents of Westbury are actually feeling today, it's one of the positives that I think as a committee would have said before when we're welcoming, you know, the actual announcement of the deployment of the SANDF.
Just based on the reports that you possibly are getting with the soldiers having been on the streets of Johannesburg, what kind of feedback are you getting in terms of what it is that they are seizing on the ground? The way that they are conducting this, based on what Veronica has just told us, they're getting into homes and they will turn your house upside down, if you like. What kind of material are they getting?
I think from today's experience, we have seen that they've arrested a couple of individuals, and it was an intelligence-driven operation, and that's what we actually expect from them. You know, we don't expect them to do general policing, you know, because that will still be done by the SAPS. But in terms of operations, you know that in terms of approaching syndicates and organized crime, you really need operations of that nature, which will be somehow driven by actually intelligence information that we get from residents. So it's important that the residents have trust now on the law enforcement, and which is quite important for us.
A very interesting phrase you've used there, that this was intelligence driven. Does that tell us that they know where the drug kingpins, for example, are, and soon we're going to have not just the arrest of runners, but we're actually going to land kingpins, whether you talk mining or drug peddling?
I think that's what is important about operations of this nature. You know, it's not to deal with those who are runners, as you say, but it's also to actually get those who are responsible, you know, for some of these, you know, actual activities. But of importance is that the police are still with them. You know, they will have to work hand in hand with the police, and their actual major objective is to make sure that when the police or the law enforcement is faced with a serious firepower, then the military will be able to reinforce and respond with equal might of that firepower.
So let's wrap up the conversation and talk about this not being a long-term solution that we have heard many times. Millions are being spent for these SANDF members to be on the ground like this. At the end of the day, though, a strategy has got to be formulated. A plan has to be formulated to make sure that what they leave behind, peaceful communities, we hope, sustains.
It should be. You know, we don't imagine a situation where we've got a permanent deployment of the army in our communities. We expect them to help us to deal with the situation at the moment, to stabilize. But it also calls for all the departments, you know, all the sectors, all the departments of government to come in. You know that the areas that we're talking about still have got a serious social welfare issue. They still have got serious issues of lack of facilities, recreational facilities for the community and the young ones. So we don't expect it to just be law enforcement that will resolve this problem. You know, it requires everybody to put hands on deck and to make sure that we pull them together. As a committee, we have engaged, you know, I think when we're doing the school safety FIS, we were able to draw in the social development and also draw in the sports and culture and draw in education to make sure that we're able to preoccupy the youngsters on this. And the issue of unemployment still reals and is still a big issue in those areas, and the poverty, you can see it where you go. So law enforcement won't be able alone, to be able to do that. But the stabilization and the intervention we welcome, and we're hoping that maybe emanating from the Madlanga Commission will get better recommendations on how we can reform our police service and build trust in the citizens.
Just as I let you go, do we know the length of time that they're going to be on our streets?
I think it will depend on the, on what actually comes out from the ground, in terms of the amount of organized crimes and syndicates that we're going to dismantle. And we also think that it's something that we hope that we're going to be able to hold them accountable. And the most important thing about this is that regular reports, needs to be given so that we also understand as a committee and as citizens the impact of their deployment, which we pretty much welcome.
Dr. Bandile Masuku, thank you very much indeed for your time. Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Community Safety in the Gauteng Legislature.